So number 3, voluntary surrender and monitoring performance. So refers to the act of voluntary delivering himself to the justice and truthfully confessing one's crime after one has committed the crime. Any criminal who voluntarily surrenders may be given a lighter or mitigated punishment. The ones whose crimes are relatively minor may be exempted from the punishment. Any criminal who performs such meritorious service as exposing an offense committed by another which is verified through the investigation or producing important clues for solving other cases may be given a lighter or mitigated punishments. So I have add-on of this also. So ilang criminal who are prefers major meritorious service may be given a mitigated punishment or be exempted from the punishment. So number 4, combined punishment for several crimes. So for a criminal who commits several crimes before a judgment is pronounced unless he is sentenced to death or life imprisonment, his term of punishment shall be not more than a total of the terms for all the crimes but not less than the longest of the terms for the crimes, depending on the circumstances of a crime. However, the term of public surveillance may not exceed the maximum of 3 years. The term of criminal detention may not exceed the maximum of 1 year. So, it should be the fixed term imprisonment not exceed the maximum of 20 years. If, after a judgment has been pronounced but before the punishment has been completely executed, it is discovered that before the judgment is pronounced, the criminal committed another crime for which he is not sentenced, a judgment shall also be rendered for the newly discovered crime. The punishment to be executed shall be determined on the basis of the punishment imposed in the earlier, the latest judgment and according to the provision of Article 69 of this law. So, add-on of this, any portion of the term that has already been served shall count towards fulfillment of the term imposed by the latest judgment. So number 5, suspension of sentence. When you say suspension of sentence may be granted to the criminal sentenced to criminal detention or fixed term imprisonment of not more than 3 years. If according to the circumstances of his crime and his demonstration of repentance, it is certain that suspension of sentence will not result in further harm to the society. The probation period for suspension of criminal detention shall not less than the term originally decided, but not more than 1 year. However, it may not be less than 2 months. So, computation of punishment. So, criminal detention, fixed term of life imprisonment can be commuted if serving his sentence, he is constantly observe prison regulations. So, these are the performs of any following major material services: preventing another person from conducting major criminal activities, if informing against major criminal activities conducted inside or outside prison, having invention of important technical innovation to his credit, coming to the rescue of another in everyday life and production, performing remarkable service in fighting against nature disaster, making another major contribution to the country and the society. So, the parole of the China, the criminal sentenced to fixed term who has served more than half of term of the original sentence or criminal sentence to life imprisonment. So, it is also the parole shall be granted to a criminal through the procedure prescribed in Article 79 of this law. No parole shall be granted without going through legal procedure. Lisod-pasad kayo, i-grante mo ng parole nga without legal procedure sa ilaha. So, under the provision period for the parole in case of fixed term, imprisonment shall be equal to the portion of term that has not been completed. The provision period for parole in the case of life imprisonment shall be 10 years. So any criminal who is granted parole shall observe the following. It should be observe laws, administrative rules, and regulation and submit to provision. Report his own activities as required the supervising organ. Observe the regulation for receiving visitors stipulated by the supervising organ. And the report to obtain approval from the supervising the organ for the any departure from the city or county he lives in or for any change in residence. So limitations. So crimes shall not be prosecuted if the following periods have elapsed. So 5 years with the maximum punishment prescribed, it's fixed term imprisonment of less than 5 years. 10 years with the maximum punishment prescribed is fixed term. 15 years with the maximum punishment prescribed. And lastly, 20 years with the maximum punishment prescribed is life imprisonment or death penalty. So no limitation on the period per persecution shall be imposed with respect to a criminal who escapes from investigation or trial after the People's Procuratorate, Public Security Organ, or National Security Organ files a case, or the People's Court accept the case. So other for this, it shall be counted from the date the criminal act is terminated. So my conclusion is China has one of the world's most restrictive media environments, relying on censorship to control information in the news, online, and social media. The government used libel lawsuits, arrest, and other means to force Chinese journalists and media organizations to censor themselves. 38 journalists were imprisoned in China in 2017. China blocks many US websites, including Facebook, Instagram, and some Google services, through the Chinese public has found ways to circumvent a so-called Great Firewall. So, this is my conclusion. It's just because when I search about the China, it always be restricted. So, a little bit I found out that I was being shocked when in times of history of China, there been so very what do you call this one, difficult to find out. So my recommendation, the application of the imposition of the punishment, it should be transparent to their family and wider society. The China also reduced the execution and improve their criminal procedure. So excuse me mga classmate kay kusog-kusog ginang iro. Kay na yung mga tao. Okay. So the recommendation, I have also the recommendation. It should be, Mama Sir, that lack of transparency in the application and the imposition of the death penalty impacts those facing execution, their families, and wider society. So, China cannot claim to have reduced execution or improve criminal procedure while judicial secrecy continues. So, so here are my references. You can open the link and you can see more knowledge or more kanang about the punishment of China. So thank you and God bless and more power.